Tell me where do I go? Tell me where do I take us? Your heart is starting to slow. May the water be safe as I dive in. Bloodstains washing underneath the waves. I'll be reaching out to keep you safe as we fall. I can't hold on much longer. We're drifting down to the other side. Try to pull us under. Keep holding out for the other side. Tell me where do I go? Tell me where do I take? Where do I go? Tell me where do I take? Your heart is starting to slow. May the water be safe as I Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun. So pick up your weapon and face it. There's blood on the ground, go and take it. You get one shot to make it out alive. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your bones, go and take it. This is your moment. Now is your time, so prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Rise. Welcome to the climb up, reach for the summit. Visions brave, the one falls, steadily the end. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your blood, go and take it. This is your moment. Take to the skies, go. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Get it on, die. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through hell and rise, rise. They will remember you. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Pick up your weapon and face it. It's the for the long run, strap in for a long one. We got everybody on one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler, but we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you calling my name. You ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be, but I got it all locked up. Take a lap now, don't be mad now. Run it back, run it back. I got bodies lining up, think you're dreaming of greatness. Send you back home, let you wake up. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come and get your spoiler, but we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you calling my name. You ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be, but I got it all locked up.
在以后，除了傻傻子，还有其他吗？我左右，键盘琵琶在时间滴答着，还不够。你的固执让我来守候，哪怕太迟也不想以后。就在这时放肆的挑逗。I got the heart of a lion, I know the harder you climb, the harder you fall. I'm at the top of the mountain, too many bodies to count. I've been through it all. I had to weather the storm to get to the level I'm on. That's how the legend was born. All of my enemies already dead and born. I'm ready for war. They know I'm ready for war. I told them we're taking over.
I got it all locked up.
Welcome back, folks. We are getting ready to jump on into our second series of the day. 𝘀ecie Esports are taking on Team 𝘀cie. 𝘀cie, Rebel, we got to see Cerberus taking the 2-0 win against 𝘀𝘀_𝘀𝘀. It was a good game one. We don't talk about game two. But 𝘀ecie against Team 𝘀cie, this is two teams towards the bottom end of the standings. And 𝘀cie, how do you really see these two teams in the overall looking at the standings?
So there's a part of me that really feels that 𝘀ecie should be a bit higher, and they came into the start of the split looking fairly well, fairly good with the replacement. Hero was playing mid lane instead of top lane, and they had 𝘀𝑺 as their sub because Artifact was out sick. But ever since they had pretty good performances with that. But ever since Artifact's come back, the team's looked a little bit lost. They've looked very shaky in sort of macro decisions, even though as individuals all the players are still fine. It's not coming together for them, and I'm not entirely sure if it's just coming up against better teams or something like that, but it's not been looking good for them. And that feels wrong for this team. The level of improvement is there, so they just need to show it.
And Rebel, for 𝘀ecie, week one went well. They won 2 of their 3 games, but after that, that's when things started to drop off. They had to play the likes of 𝘀𝗀, they had to play 𝘀𝘀_𝘀𝘀, who started playing well, literally, in week 2, and then they had the loss to 𝘀𝑚 as well. Where do you essentially see 𝘀ecie? Do you think they deserve, essentially, to have these 2 wins? Do you think they deserve to be counted in the same kind of category as the likes of 𝘀𝘀_𝘀𝘀 and 𝘀𝗀𝘀_𝘀𝘀, or do you think they're more in this grouping with Team Secret and Team 𝘀𝑚?
I would put them in the grouping with 𝘀𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 and 𝘀𝘀_𝘀𝘀. So their first week, I want to point out who they played. They won against Team Secret, and then they won against 𝘀𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀. And they have not played another team on the bottom half of the stage. They played 𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, they played 𝘀𝗀𝘀, they played 𝘀𝑚, they played Cerberus. This is, it's a tough schedule on the back half, and they hit 𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 at just the right time where, there's an argument to be made that they did well during that series. There's an argument to be made that BTS actually should have just straight up 2-0'd them on both sides of that. And so to me, it's a classic case of we've got 2 teams sitting at the bottom, Team Secret, Team 𝘀𝘀, and then we have a 3-way tie because Saigon beat 𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, 𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 beat 𝘀𝑚, and 𝘀𝑚 beat 𝘀𝑔𝑂N_Buffalo, where we're going to end up with 3 teams at 3 and 4 apiece, each one trying to get into this next spot that you're looking for here. So that's where I think we're going to end up, all things considered, with these 3 teams. Now, ultimately, I think 𝘀ecie is going to end up on the bottom end of these 3 teams based on what we've seen over the course of the split. I don't think that they're have figured out their program enough, especially walking into the mid splits, to be able to actually have some semblance of cohesion. I could be wrong about that. Maybe they've just been saving all of their good stuff for what happens at midseason. But right now, it seems like they're faltering at the wrong time, and this is perhaps the one chance to catch their breath and reassess themselves before they have a bunch of drastic change come in, and as a potential push for the back half of the split to try to overcome 2 full teams in order to make playoffs.
And 𝘀𝑚, we've touched on 𝘀ecie now. I want to look over to Team 𝘀𝑚 because Team 𝘀𝑚, for me, they've been, okay, I'm going to get flamed for this, but they've been one of my favorite teams so far this split. I personally think that they've shown a lot of potential, and I think they've been very hard done by, considering the fact that they are yet to win a series. Do you think they have it in them to finally be able to win a series?
I think they do. I think they've been steadily improving as time goes on, but I don't think necessarily this is the series they'll win. Their next series this week, hey, they're up against Team Secret. That's the one they absolutely could win. But this one might just be a bit too far out of the reach for them because, as I said before, the problem for 𝘀ecie is the map movements, the macro, the coordination between the team. And I don't think 𝘀𝑀 is quite able to punish that so much. So it will come down to the fact that I think 𝘀ecie just do have the better roster. And that should be enough to carry them against 𝘀𝑀 specifically. Will it be but they do need to get their stuff together to hit the higher tier, hit Buffalo back, hit BTS and bring them back down to their tier. So they should be comfortable against 𝘀𝑀, but not anyone. But yeah, they need to improve to get high.
And Rebel, what's your take on Flash so far this split? They've had 6 series to this point, only won 2 games of those 6 series.
Of my opinion about Team Flash, I think this was never going to be a split that they were intending on having anything other than an 8th place finish, unfortunately. That's not to say that this team is really that horrid, right? This team has potential on it. They have ability to move up. They have ability to kind of surprise. But when you're rocking effectively 3 rookies and you're trying out a 4th in and out, when you got 2 veterans who aren't performing at the greatest that we've ever been able to see them play, expectation is not right now, it's later, right? And so this to me is more of a gauge of how well can Flash continue to make steady improvements. And they've been able to do that in a lot of different ways. I think there's other ways that they desperately need to improve. I don't think all of the rookies are going to stay around for a very long time. I think that's potentially on the horizon. There are different players that could come about that could be helpful for the team. But the important bit right this moment is that there is no relegation. You're not worried about losing your spot. So this is the chance to try out some of these younger players and see what they've got for the remainder of the split, just to see who it is that you can take into spring when you're competing for MSI, take into summer when you're competing for a world spot, and see who's able to actually, help you make that push. And to me, that's what Flash is doing. They're in the infancy of trying out this strategy that worked so well immediately for the side of Saigon that's now turning back. That's worked, BTS is starting to find their way with some of that. And that's kind of their role now, is just to try to figure out what it is that they're going to be doing with this roster come springtime, come summer, when it actually starts to matter.
And 𝘀𝗶𝗶, following on from this point of rookies, who have been really the rookies from Flash that have stood out or failed to impress so far in the winter split?
So it's really rough because I think 𝘀𝗶𝗵 has actually shown heavy improvement. His first series was some of the worst gameplay I've seen in a long time, but since then he's been one of the better performing members for Flash. Dante on the other hand is like statistically one of the worst, but actually looking at him, I feel he's just sort of let down by the fact that his team doesn't know how to work with him. I feel there's potential in there that just, he's a jungle, so a jungler on the worst team, it's very hard to look good if you're not sort of the 1v9 style. And then you have 𝘀cie, who he's just kind of there. I don't feel impressed by him. I feel like he's the least impressive of the rookies, and that's not where you want to be.
Yo, I'm just saying, 𝘀cie got clowned by Yashiro. You remember Yashiro, 𝘀𝗶𝗶. We talked about Yashiro when we were covering VCSB back when we actually had something to cover back then. I talked this man up all day. 𝘀cie got clowned by Yashiro. And this is also, 𝘬𝗿 is his support. 𝘬𝗿 was why did you not bring in the combo? Why did you not bring both of them in? He could have been the replacement for 𝘀cie. Sorry, I had to get heated there for a moment.
I forgot about Yashiro.
Imagine a team he also would have played with Yashiro. It would have been Yashiro and Yashiro. How horrible would that have been?
Nightmare.
Well, maybe that's why they didn't pick it up. So Rebel's got his first molding of the series over and done with. We're getting ready to jump on into pick some bans. And Rebel, the biggest thing I want to see is Artifact playing in the mid lane for SBTC. We know they've been having some of those lane swaps with Hero and
Whoa! Okay.
This team...
Also, we're halfway through pick some bans.
I mean, halfway is a stretch. But yeah, I mean, we're through all the bans and we're getting through the rest of this. It's actually kind of crazy. Are we really out here giving up Lucian Nami again? Can we not do this anymore? The only thing you can respond to this with the Aphelios has to be the Lulu. That's what they did at Worlds all the time. But even that, like, you're risking celebrity CBL against 𝘀cie saying, okay, we're going to take the worst end of the early game and thinking that that's going to work against this combo. That's not good.
Yeah, it's also giving Penguin a very effective early game jungle that he can try and make those impacts on. I am personally shocked that they did sub out Artifact. I thought this especially was an opportunity to try and work on those problems, try and make sure that team is coordinated, but they have gone to 𝗀𝗵𝗆, and that does limit their options available in this draft. You can see they had to go for the Syndra ban because Hero can't play it. Whereas it's one of Artifact's best champions. It's his most played in his career. So
it's also 𝘀𝗶𝗵's best champion.
It is also 𝘀𝗵𝗵's best.
Actually, 𝘀𝗶𝗵's only champion.
Okay, his Orianna was okay.
Nope.
Harvey's LeBlanc is okay. It's just don't let him anywhere near Vex. Vex is the big one.
I, to be honest, I actually want to see Harvey back on Vex because I think that first series was a big case of first series jitters, a rookie jitter in the VCS. So I'd like to have some faith in Harvey, but my analysts clearly do not.
I'm sure that played a
Team
factor.
Flash simp. You are a simp for Team Flash for absolutely no reason.
I'm sure that played a factor, but no.
Lock him on 𝘀𝗎𝗋 duty. That's what the rest of these mid. That's what happens to the rest of these mid laners. 𝘀𝗎𝗋 duty.
Right, well, I didn't think I'd ever hear the day where Rebel wanted the 𝘀𝗎𝗋 to be picked up. Either way, we've got a Jace coming through in the top lane, which means for Harvey, he's going to be getting that counter pick, Marby.
Yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see where he goes, how he reaches deep, but it's going to be the Gragas as the counter pick for 𝘀𝗶𝗹𝗀, sorry. We've seen Hasmed do wonderful things on it. We've seen less wonderful things from Yoshino. But
thank you, Rebel. Thank you.
They took the 𝘀𝗎𝗋. They were anticipating Harvey being locked in 𝘀𝗎𝗋 jail.
Hero learned a mid laner. He learned a mid laner.
Does 𝘀𝗎𝗋 count as a mid laner?
I mean, yes.
It's closer than anything else.
They're called super big time chicken esports for a reason, alright?
That's true.
That's why we got Birdio.
A fast food skin for 𝘀𝗎𝗋. That's just a travesty.
Okay, what would you like from Harvey here?
Not Orianna. I mean, I guess the idea behind the Orianna here is like, hey, you attach it to Lee Sin, and now you get Moonlight Vigil, Shockwave, and Shock Blast through an acceleration gate, but like, are you gonna live past 15 minutes with this composition? Like, you got Lucian, Nami, and you've got like Jarvan, 𝘀𝗎𝗋. I'm not very much in favor of this Team Flash composition right now.
Yeah, no, I would have gone for something a lot more akin to like what the Syndra does. Orianna isn't that. I would have liked to see something more like a Zoe, but yeah.
Cursed be the day we see Harvey Zoe VCS.
You guys are leaning on my boy, so I'm gonna direct this draft towards or direct this conversation to another point in the draft. Looking at Team Flash here, Rebel, as you said, scaling in the bottom lane, scaling in the mid lane. Is this Dante having to play around Yoshino? We know how good Yoshino has been in some of the more recent series for Team Flash.
I mean, he's supposed to be the veteran presence. I feel like his split has been rather down. It's tough to say whether that's actually a trade-off of, is it the team kind of dragging him down, or is he just not doing enough to assist his team? I think it's a little bit of both in this particular case. So hopefully this is a series where maybe Dante can put some more attention towards Yoshino and they can get some resource into him to try to help him out so that he can help kind of bring his team up, especially in the mid parts of the game with his Jays.
And Marby, your thoughts on the draft and who you think is going to take game one?
Yeah, Dante and Yoshino have to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in the early game, but unfortunately for Dante, outside of maybe a Glitter Lance into Graviton, he doesn't have a lot of ability to actually get things done doesn't have help to get things done in the early game. So it's going to have to be a great performance from him, and I don't think he's up to it.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this game does pan out. Thank you again to Marby for her thoughts, and we'll be hearing more from her at the end of this game. Team Flash against 𝘀𝗶𝗋. Effectively, can 𝘀𝗶𝗋 join the likes of 𝘀𝗀𝗋𝗋 and burst the sky in fourth in the three-way battle for fourth? Shut up, Rebel. Or can Team Flash get a win and level things up with Team Secret? He's going to say no.
Listen, if you want to be wrong all the time, you're welcome to keep predicting that Flash is going to make a turnaround, but it's just not going to happen yet. Like, something has to change for this team to do something different. If they want to show me change, that's fine. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm not going to admit that you're right because it will never happen because you aren't right. But even if they
how are the predictions going, by the way?
Huh? How are the predictions going? I mean, if you want to goon and select the wrong team to win because the VCS is unpredictable beyond belief, you're welcome to do so week in and week out. But like, there's absolutely no validity to your analysis on anything. Listen, you could be even right about your analysis, or you could be right about who you picked. There is no analysis that could predict like a 15,000 gold swap in this league. It's never going to happen. I'm sorry, 𝘀𝗀𝗋. Like, it just can't. You can't justify some of the things that these teams do with logic.
I mean, that's a fair point. Okay, so we touched a little bit on Dante and maybe him ganking towards the top side of the map. Let's touch on Penguin. Is this
Sure.
a case of, yo, we've got Lucian Nami, we got to snowball the hell out of this? Or is this, Harvey's on an immobile mage, we've got Galio with 3CC, let's just put Harvey out of this game?
I'm gonna answer this in a relatively candid way. It actually doesn't matter. He can hit any lane. He's got CC in all 3 lanes. All of his lanes are more powerful early. It does not matter where Penguin goes. As long as he is doing something with his lanes, he's winning the game. Heck, he doesn't even need to do something for his lanes. As long as he waits for level 6, all of a sudden you get a Galio like Jarvan combination, which is something we haven't seen for a hot minute. But like I forget what I used to call it. It was like a bullseye like combination because you like set up like the outer circle and the inner circle at once, and then the bullseye is the middle where the Jarvan is standing. Like that type of composition is crazy into these like team fighting compositions because oftentimes they find themselves grouping up to try to use all these big AoE ultimates together. But in the early game, it does no damage, and then all of a sudden you run into a Jarvan with a Cataclysm in the early game, and it just smashes you over the head with a Galio, and it's just unacceptable amounts of pressure that you've got. I don't know how they earned the level 1 push here on bottom side. I guess 𝘀𝗀 on this Lulu is just insane, but that probably shouldn't have happened. That should break up on this minion once they get this level 2 mark. But I don't know how this Lucian Nami lost that level 2 fight.
I mean, I've been telling you guys for a while, you guys are sleeping on Team Flash, and right as I say that, Celebrity and CBR get a very good trade onto 𝘀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀, and they actually force the exhaust out of the Team Flash ADC. Just a reminder as well, 𝘀𝗀 has been to Worlds. Used to play on a GAM back when they had their very good, was it 2019 or 2020 split? I forget.
I'm sorry, you're referring to 𝘀𝗀? You played on Flash?
Oh, Flash. Wait,
I didn't hear what you said.
no, he was on GAM. It was
I
Yoshino.
didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, 𝘀𝗀. Yeah, 𝘀𝗀.
Okay, he was on GAM when they had their... Yeah, 2019 would have been that split, because it was Flash in 2020 that kind of popped off.
Well,
Why?
so far, not too...
Why?
I'm just bringing up backstories here.
Man, you're bringing up backstory for 𝘀𝗀, who has had nothing but bad performances the majority of this split. He's
had a couple of good games this split. I don't know about
a couple of good games for a player that's supposed to be touted as one of our best supports. He hasn't had a good split. And
look,
again,
what can I say? We've got a lot of good supports here in the VCS.
Yes and no. But 𝘀𝗀's supposed to be one of the ones you can count on, but this just hasn't been the case. Again, this is a problem of the veterans not stepping up. Okay.
I thought that was impressive. Anyway, we've got Penguin making his way to the bottom side, and as you mentioned, Rebel, Penguin can go wherever he so pleases. 𝘀𝗀 𝘀𝗶𝗹 is taken very low, and Penguin is just, well, he can't really do much. Oh wait, there's a Galio! Where the hell did that Galio come from? There was a teleport in. The biggest drive-by I've ever seen of my life, Rebel.
Like, okay, so you predict Team Flash, right? When you predict Team Flash, do you see things
no,
like
I
that
did not
happening?
analyze this, no.
You didn't analyze that. You can say what you want about predictions and their validity, but you can't predict that a 4-person dive at this quickly with that good of a TP from a Galio is going to lead to literally nothing in the early stages of the game.
I mean, I'd argue that it
nothing.
wasn't a good TP because CBL had already missed the 𝘀𝗀 and couldn't do anything in the fight. And if either Hero or Penguin like touched 𝘀cie or 𝘀𝗀, the tower was just going to tear them to shreds because there was no follow-up.
Like I said, the unpredictable gameplay. They've got a perfect setup to try to attack on the bottom side.
Rebel,
it doesn't work.
In fairness, Rebel, you could use that argument for anything. You could go back to the previous game and say, oh, could you imagine that in the Cerberus series, could you imagine that 𝘀𝗀 was going to fail his flash over the wall, but Ego was still going to get a double kill at 2.5 minutes in the game?
I mean, there's a world of argument where you could justifiably come up with a game plan for a team like that, right? And our game plan here was that SBTC was supposed to attack with this Jarvan and Galio combination, and then they do, but you don't expect it to fail that horribly under a tower, right?
Let me ask you, if you've ever seen a play where a Jarvan comes to dive the bot tower, drops a ward for the Galio to TP on at level 4, the Galio TPs in with home guard and runs into the tower and out of the tower.
I think that's a perfectly acceptable play for a situation in which you find yourself with this early game of a composition.
Okay. But have you seen it before?
I can't say I've seen it in this league,
Hmm.
but that's probably not true. I mean, back Galio used to be run with Camille. They probably did that with Camille 100 times over the course of like 2020, 2021, and the earlier stages. Team Secret was a master of that combination. That's how they won a bunch of their games.
Okay, well, Penguin trying to invade the blue buff from Dante. 𝘁𝗵 is here. He's going to land a shockwave pallet on the way. The focus is onto Penguin for now. Is there anything more to come through the distance?
That's
Find
a TP.
the teleport. 𝘀𝗶𝗀𝗀 joining into the fray. We get a freeze frame. Pallet on the run. Is going to be able to get the slow. Does not have flash.
There we go.
Will get knocked out. Will get bounced around. And it will be first blood over to 𝘀elebrity.
And they're flexing this early game, finally something that actually stuck. They're trading off for a tower in the top lane, which is just 𝘂𝗀xe being able to pull gold. They've done nothing to shut down the J.C.E., which is a problem, because J.C.E. is pulling gold. And the thing is, as long as J.C.E. is pulling gold, even if he is dying in the process, that is okay, because J.C.E. will scale and do incredible things, right? But here, they're getting a response of the opposite side of the map. They're trying to find strikes and things like that. And this is also the second time that Dante has gone a counter jungling on the opposite side of the map when a bottom side play has come about. So they snagged the blue buff up. I think he wanted to give that to 𝘂𝗀xe. I would have rather see that go to 𝘂𝗀xe, and they're going to go for Rift Herald as well. Although they actually, I don't think, know that SBTC ran away from the dragon and haven't actually gone there. So there are a number of people that could be heading up towards this Rift Herald if they wanted to try to flip for it, as every other team does. But the problem with this situation is that 𝘂𝗀xe had the push in top, which means that, 𝘀𝗀𝗀 had to actually respond to that wave after he came back. Mid-wave was the same way because they put so much into the bottom side pressure. And again, they didn't go to dragon. That was probably their opening, to go and take the dragon as soon as humanly possible to try to generate some early game like objective control. But SBTC simply didn't do it. They just walked away with the blue buff and said, okay, that's good enough. And Team Flash has a really good response. That's Dante actually making really good decisions on the cross side of the map, helping out the J.C.E. and picking up a neutral objective while his enemy team gets nothing.
So despite SBTC being able to pick up first blood, his Team Flash who end up on top, 300 gold ahead of SBTC, and a Rift Herald as well, which should give a few hundred more gold. And surely Rebel, Dante's putting that top lane. It's snowball 𝘂𝗀xe game. We've seen what he was able to do. We remember the Gnar performance, I believe, against Cerberus, which was fantastic. And now 𝘂𝗀xe forced to flash out of a Cataclysm. 𝘀𝗀𝗀 is on the run. Penguin flashing forward. Dante nowhere nearby. I don't know if 𝘂𝗀xe can get out of this one. He has to be careful of the explosive cask, which does come through.
𝘀𝗀𝗀.
It knocks 𝘂𝗀xe away, and now he's on the run. Flag and drag will be up soon. The flag is dropped, and Dante says hello, and he kicks a Penguin into the towers. A two-man knock-up. The hero's entrance is cancelled, and it's a 1-for-1 in the top lane. But it is 𝘂𝗀xe who is able to pick up the kill.
Little shocking in general right there that went as poorly as it did for the side of SBTC, because they're the ones kind of initiating this. And amazing stuff from 𝘁𝗵 to stop the Galio ultimate that could have torn that into a two-person kill. I think actually very much to the benefit of SBTC that 𝘀𝗀𝗀 was the one who snagged that. But again, they've done nothing to shut down 𝘂𝗀𝗀. He's still up 30 CS. He still has the kill under his belt. This is supposed to be, again, Penguin's intention behind ganks like this should not be to try to kill 𝘂𝗀𝗀, because if the wave state is improper, he's not losing any CS. You're not shutting him out of gold. All you're doing is putting gold in your own pocket, which is fine sometimes, but in the best world, you do both at the same time, and this isn't Penguin doing that. 𝘂𝗀𝗀 is just able to walk out relatively for free. They don't really find a cohesive engage between the two of them, and again, the Galio ultimate was quite nice. The actual crazy part was somehow that EQ ended up landing because he dropped the flag in the right position. His bottom lane, the Rift Herald getting dropped as Dante continues to just run the map over Penguin.
Yeah, forget about putting more gold into 𝘂𝗀𝗀. Let's get some gold onto 𝘁𝗀𝗀, who is a Team Flash's idea. The Rift Herald will be secured. And Flash looking pretty good, nearly 2,000 gold ahead of SBTC. But we've seen bigger goals being thrown in the VCS. And as you so aptly put it, Rebel, you can't analyze it. You can't predict it coming.
Not usually. In a case like this, okay, we actually seem to have missed something on the bottom side. Wow. They're able to find a kill. How are they finding kills with the 𝘂𝗀𝗀𝗀 into the Lucian Nami in the early stages of the game?
And you question why Flash left it open.
This was the world's pick, but it wasn't ever for the laning phase. It was just so that, the 𝘂𝗀𝗀𝗀s could actually get through relatively unscathed. Usually it kind of latched to the Nami. It either latched the Nami down permanently to the hip of the Lucian, or it meant that the Lucian was operating solo for a little while, so the Lulu or the Nami got out and about, because Lulu usually was just kind of there in the laning phase, making sure the 𝘂𝗀𝗀𝗀s was going to have the hovering that was necessary. And in this case, I mean, like, they shouldn't be pulling solo kills on the bottom side of the map against the likes of the 𝘀cie Nami. That just should not be happening most of the time. So it's a little confusing as to how that actually happened for 𝘀/𝗿𝗏 and CBL. How is, like, they've got this super powerful early game, and the SBTC seem confused about how to use it for the most part.
I wanted to make a joke, but I probably won't. Dante looking towards the top side, looking towards 𝘀𝗀 as 𝘂𝑚𝑖 just going to zone him away from the tower, but 𝘀𝗀 doesn't care. He's a tanky boy on the Gragas. He's got a big beer belly to keep himself safe.
Goodness gracious. And 𝘂𝑚𝑖 continues to spiral out of control. I mean, he's at 123 S. He's already over 10 CS per minute. They've done very little to slow him down. 𝘀𝗀, I mean, he's at AP Gragas, so he's got some okay damage, but it's not enough to really contest the Jace at any point during the course of this laning phase, at least not yet. Penguin still is just like meandering about the map looking for just any wild bouts of aggression he can, which isn't necessarily a horrid thing, but again, if you're not working with your teammates to make sure that this engagement is solid across the board, then it eventually just goes to waste, which is exactly what's been happening. Is
Shockwave comes through, hero flashes, and will dash out to safety. I want to touch back on what you were saying about Penguin as he invades the blue buff away from Dante, but Dante doesn't care because he's going to invade Penguin's blue buff. Penguin in week 1, we argued was probably the best jungler in the VCS. And the only person kind of close was 𝑘𝗀, as we've got a gank coming through. Flying Drag will find a knock-up onto 𝘁𝗀. Hero's entrance. And that will be the second kill of the fight. Never mind, it's the third kill, because actually, Team Flash were able to find a kill onto 𝘀/𝗏 while all of that was going on. So again, SBTC throwing so many resources, but only getting a 2-for-1.
They're trying to shut down the bottom lane now, I suppose, is the idea. So the intention here, oh my goodness, 𝘁𝗀 actually made that play happen. That's kind of unbelievable, the ability to use that Moonlight Vigil with the Chakram to find that. And then, I mean, Penguin finds the response kill alongside the Galio. They're finally finding some cross-map play, but it's a little late in this stage, especially since 𝘂𝑒𝑙𝑖os is pulling response kills during that process, right? You're not slowing down the Jace on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
And now when you're attacking the 𝘂𝑒𝑙𝑖os, you're not really slowing down 𝘂𝑒𝑙𝑖os either, because he's still pulling gold for the most part. And it's just causing these massive problems here for the side of SBTC. So back to your Penguin point. First off, I don't know when this meeting was of all the analysts that decided that Penguin was one of the best 2 junglers in the first week. I don't know who it was that decided that. Penguin was supposed to be good with this team alongside 𝘀/𝗏𝗏, and that's what they were supposed to bank their success on. In the first week, that's kind of what they did. They were able to get Penguin kind of in and about, active as much as possible, and let him control things early while 𝘀/𝗏𝗏 kind of scaled up and did things.
Okay, Penguin getting engaged on. That's going to be a Gravitum to lock down hero. And CBL and 𝘀/𝗏𝗏 join into the mid lane. Now, 𝘀𝗀 being caught. Locked down by the Everfrost is Dante. Going to dash out to Palette. And out to safety. No kills coming through. To go back to your point, Rebel, of when this analyst meeting was. I remember at the end of week 1, we had some folks in the call. And I said, so who do we think is the best junglers? Or who do we think are the best junglers? And I just remember it being said, Penguin, Killer Queen, and 𝘂𝗀. But we discounted 𝘂𝗀 because he misplaced Rift Herald. So it was Killer Queen and Penguin.
I don't remember this. I don't think I would have been part of this discussion because I.
Do you think Dante remembers when he got caught out in the river because he just has, and now there's no jungler for the side of Team Flash? I'm not quite sure what Dante was doing there. I think he was trying to clear out some vision, and now SBTC pretty much have this first Rift Herald, the second Rift Herald of the game, in the bag.
Flipping a little bit around second Rift Herald. Again, it's Team Flash who in the early stages absorbed a ridiculous amount of pressure, but they have to be careful because, again, this early game composition doesn't really get a ton weaker yet. When it goes into the mid game, it's in the first 2-item kind of territory, is when it still is very, very dangerous, especially Penguin on a Jarvan. If you start to give him kills and you start to let him ramp up, and he gets into Gore Drinker, maybe into like Jarm's Fist, things of that sort, to be able to work with, all of a sudden, not only is he hard to kill, but also he's doing a pretty decent amount of damage to compare with everything else. Your one problem still for the side of SBTC is that your Lucian's pretty much the only thing that can contest in late game against anybody on the side of Team Flash. I guess Gragas has some okay scaling as well, but that is your perhaps lowest gold member at the moment, or at least the lowest gold of the members across the map, aside from farm for the most part. So it's like 𝘀/𝗏𝗏's been doing a good job farming. It's 2 kills to the Galio, Gil, and some decent plays over to the side of like the Gragas and everything else. They haven't been able to get Lucian as powerful as they would want him, I guess is where I'm trying to lead to this point. Whereas Team Flash, I mean, they're feeling perfect about where their Jace is at. They're feeling fine about where their 𝘂𝑒𝑙𝑖os is at. Even 𝘁𝗏𝗏 in the mid lane really is like a 20 CS lead. And they're doing good in pretty much all of their lanes, despite all of this aggression that's been out there from the side of SBTC.
Well, first tower of the game has been secured by 𝘂𝑚𝑖 in the top lane. Engage onto the Rift.
What a
Not
shot,
quite going to be
Wave.
able to take it in time, but it doesn't matter. Tidal Wave comes through. Going to be able to find a one-man knock-up. It's a decent kick from Dante, who looks to go back in. He's knocked around as the Wild Growth comes through. Knock-up from the Aqua Prison as well. But Team Flash and SBTC won't be able to find a kill. So we're seeing 𝘀𝗀 and Yoshino starting to make their way down. A well-played Shock Blast could snipe a kill for Yoshino, as never mind, we're going to look at a replay in the mid lane.
Finding a play onto 𝘁𝗀, making sure that the Aphelios continues to be aggressed against over the course of this beginning of the game has felt like the theme for the side of SBTC. We're actually getting a jump out of that immediately because there appears to be plays across the map. What world?
Hero?
How?
Well, that's a teleport.
How did 𝘂𝗶𝗹𝘀 get that kill?
Wait, Harvey died. Wait, what happened?
Harvey died to 𝘂𝗶𝗹, but I can't tell how.
There's a
It
dead.
looked like
I
he
see
just
the
already
Oriana.
engaging there. Yeah.
I'm going to
It looks
assume
like
that
happened in
Celebrity
mid lane.
had
I'm
a
guessing
hand.
Harvey might have actually gotten a little bit too big for his britches there, stepped up in the laning phase against Celebrity and 𝘂𝗶𝗹, and they just turned on him with the 𝘀𝗀 damage, is what I'm guessing happened. I don't know, though.
I think that's a reasonable prediction to make, as a second tower will go the way of Team Flash. Team Flash with 2 towers to SBTC's 0. And despite Team Flash trailing by 4 kills, they do find themselves 2,000 gold ahead. And you've brought up how SBTC have looked to 𝘁𝗀, have shut 𝘁𝗀 down quite a few times, and we've seen many teams over the course of the split looking towards 𝘁𝗀, who has been rather prone to overextending by himself. But it doesn't really matter, because this Aphelios is going to be getting strong nonetheless, and this is how Harvey died.
Would you look at that? He stepped up into a
Oh
𝘀𝗀.
my! This is why you play 𝘀𝗀.
I was gonna criticize Harvey, but I'm gonna be real. I don't think anybody can predict that kind of damage. That was insane. That electrocute proc looked like it did 1,000 damage against Harvey. I don't blame him. He probably wasn't expecting that big of a burst out. Especially, I guess that was probably a compound of what was Kraken Slayer proc alongside Press the Attack proc alongside electrocute all at once, and just wasn't ready for the smoke on that one. So Harvey was overextended, but I don't blame him that much, because you can't possibly anticipate that kind of damage coming out of that early, even with the 𝘀𝗀 Nami on the field.
There's a lot of procs, and we don't even have a Renekton on the map. Well, Team Flash, they are still ahead for now, but we're starting to see a bit of the old NA RAM approaching. We do have a Drake up, which would explain why the teams are doing this, because Team Flash want to be getting their first Drake of the game.
Yeah, mid lane is equal right now. They do have grasp of that mid lane on the side of Team Flash, and they've got kind of the shallow parts of the jungle. They're competing for vision right now. Bottom lane was shoved by Gragas, but I think it got cleared by Yoshino. I'm not sure if he actually had full cleared that or not. It looked like 𝘀𝗀. Maybe he would have had something, but decided, I guess, against it. They're going to compete, I guess, for mid shove, but again, Team Flash seems to have full control around this dragon. The only difference maker they've got right now is this Gragas.
Oh, okay, we've got a fight happening just in the corner of our screen. Hero's going to get taken down. Tidal Wave will find 3 members of Team Flash, but it is only at the end of the fight, so it doesn't really have any impact towards the fight itself. And Team Flash, having picked up a kill onto Hero, can now turn towards the Drake, and Yoshino just tells 𝘀𝗀 to get the hell away from the pet.
It's so curious, because all that needed to happen there from the side of SBTC is to shove out bottom lane with your Gragas, and then use the fact that the bottom lane was shoved without like everybody else being in vision on the other side of the map, and just like let them shove, let them walk into river, and all of a sudden you have a solid flank angle. But instead, I mean, you can see this, like it's the Jarvan Galio combination. They don't get a solid lock onto the Aphelios, and then Galio just gets caught completely out. It's a 2v5 situation where they've moved from the river into the mid lane, and they have control of both, and it just opens up the river for being able to be taken by the side of Team Flash. It's such a mistake. Wait until they're in the dragon pit, then use a flanking Gragas to set up a Galio teleport. If they flee into you, you can use Jarvan Cataclysm to stop them, and if they're trying to get away, they're going to walk right through the Galio, or they're going to burn every summoner spell and every defensive kind of tool in their arsenal, getting away from the dragon pit, which lets you open back up on the dragon and take that one yourselves. It's such a curious decision. SBTC are playing like this. Somehow it is both overly aggressive, but also incredibly predictable for Team Flash, and they just have not fallen victim for a single ounce of it so far.
I feel like the SBTC ideas feel very linear. Flag and drag, Cataclysm 𝘁𝗀, Galio on top. And if they can't get that, then it feels like they don't have anything with the way that they're currently playing this game, as they look for a collapse onto Dante. But I think Team Flash are somewhat wiser to this. Dante's somewhat baiting it, and will just ward hop over into the red buff.
and they're in a situation where, like, again, this composition is supposed to succeed on like the first, second item mark, and they're at their first item, some starting to spike onto their second item. That's kind of where Penguin and Celebrity are hovering around right now. But that's not going to get them anywhere past that point. Orianna is starting to work her way towards what is effectively what I have to assume is going to be either a Seraphs or a Rabadon's a second item. 2 items are already completed for 𝘁𝗀, including the Collector, which, by the way, I think in this composition probably is not optimal, just because you're going to get armor from 𝘁𝗀, you're going to get armor from 𝘁𝗀. Observers, you got to do better. We're watching pickoffs happen at the very end of things, but at least the kill did come over. Finally, you're able to use the 𝘁𝗀 ultimate for something against Pallet right there.
And just to point out, so that we aren't doing our producer Spoods dirty, we don't have any control over the observers.
Oh yeah, no, Spoods would be doing a much better job of this, yes.
Spoods is probably screaming right now.
He's the one who created the copy pasta.
Did he actually?
Of course he did. Yeah, he has the copy pasta about the VETV. I'm pretty sure he's the one who had it.
Oh,
if
yeah,
not, he definitely
okay.
spreads it enough to where he might get some credit for it. What in the world?
I've seen it every now and then in the Twitch chat, but I didn't realize it was good old Spoods who made that. That makes me have a lot more respect for the copy pasta. But in this game, we are nearly 23 minutes in. It's a 2,000 gold lead for Team Flash. Dante, you got to be careful there. Again, it's flag and drag, hero's entrance, throw a teleport in, and Team Flash just ward hop, 𝘀𝗶𝗹𝗀, run away. And now that's an ult and a teleport down.
Yeah, or Penguin.
Okay, Cataclysm comes through. Okay, we've got a freeze screen. 𝘁𝗀's got to get taken down. CBL again picks up the kill, but all the while, Team Flash in the side lanes, they're just split pushing. They don't really care too much, but I think they should care because they're going to be losing an outer tower at the very least.
Yeah, I think they should care a little bit more about that. That was perhaps the first play that I think that SBTC have been able to force effectively, and it's because of a few things. Number one, they had a numbers advantage. Number two, they burnt summoner spells in a couple of situations. And number three, they had multiple angles of attack. It was not just Penguin, it was also 𝘀𝗀 coming over the top of the Raptor pit that actually meant quite a bit, and that meant that they found a little bit of success where they just have not for the remainder of the game. Now, 𝘀𝗀 is able to find a little bit.
Hero is chasing. Everfrost will lock him down. Nami and Lucian are making their way over, even if Yoshino finds an outplay. Oh my god, he gets the kill. Yoshino take a bow. And SBTC end up throwing 4 members towards the bottom side, and they only get a 1-for-1.
I mean, if they show gold at any point, yeah, look at this. I mean, you talk about the Cataclysm and then also the Eve flash over top of the pit to the likes of Dante. That was kind of incredible. But if you show the gold values that actually come about from everything in this game, Yoshino's probably at or near the top of the entire game in terms of gold. It's not shocking to see him be able to kind of take this, because 𝘀𝗀's been sacrificing a bunch of farm to try to make things happen across the map. Penguin has been, able to pick up a fair amount, but, Hero has also sacrificed his farm and able to do quite a bit just by roaming across the map constantly on the likes of this 𝘁𝗀. There just isn't enough substance to what they've been able to get, right? They find these plays that aren't that great, and it costs them, the time that they could have been farmed, gold that they could have had in their pockets. And they've done nothing to shut down the gold values that are coming through for the side of, what is Team Flash here. This was actually rather well played by Yoshino. He was able to use that transformation, and I think the saving the W through the first auto attack is always nice, because again, it gives you an extra auto attack on the empowered damage after you use your shock blast for the first time once you transform into that stance. So at least a little mechanic that was actually used rather effectively right there by the likes of Yoshino. Not super crazy, but at least something. But again, I mean, if they're going to continue this strategy of trying to pick members off, he is a good member to continue to try to pick off in a side lane. But you've given up so much in this earlier stage. It feels like the gold is already there for Team Flash. They don't need to really have to play super defensively, because they've got enough gold to be offensive across the map. And now Dante with a second dragon. I mean, this just means that like any neutral objective across the map is just theirs for taking. Like they just do anything they want. They can buy more time. They can wait through 2 more dragons and just wait for their team fight to come online, because they're the ones who kind of drafted for specifically that purpose. SBTC feel like their clock is starting to run out.
Now, I want to do some calling out. Okay, flag and drag as it is Dante, who's not being called out, but being caught out. Hero's actually taken down low, forced to use the Zhonya's. Dante's going to die, but so will Hero. Flag and drag comes through. They're going to be able to get the pick onto Yoshino, and that's probably the first bad play Yoshino has made all game. 𝘀𝗀 coming in, flash away from 𝘁𝗀. Penguin getting run down here. Has to be careful. Harvey does not have the shockwave available. 𝘀𝗀's going to go golden. As soon as he comes out, he is going to die. 𝘁𝗀 picks up the kill. 3 kills for 2. Team Flash coming out on top, and Harvey might want another now. The Flag and Drag is going to take Penguin out, but the dissonance is going to give Harvey some movement speed as he's on the chase. But look for 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀. 𝘀𝗏𝗏 is nearby. Can he get close enough to give a shield? 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 just trying to 1v2 right now. He's going to get the kill onto Harvey, who just gets a little bit too big for his boots.
And 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 is the only person, again, that can kind of contest in this later game. So it's nice to see him getting kills during the course of team fights. But 𝘁𝗔 this entire time was shoving another wave into the mid tower, which is just even more denied resources. Whereas, I mean, SBTC has this AoE composition. They've got enough kind of workaround for some of this situation where their 5-on-5 is not going to look bad. But again, as this game continues, this looks worse and worse because nobody has been farming. Nobody's been able to find too much gold. If they were winning a lot in the early stages, this fight looks incredible. But you can see just how close that this fight actually is, despite being this team that has so much early presence. I mean, you're rocking the 𝘀𝗀, the 𝗀𝗏𝗀, you're rocking all these kind of earlier game type champions, yet 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀 is still able to run through your team with relative ease. And yes, it gets matched by 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀 for the most part. But I mean, what happens in 5 minutes when the same fight happens and 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗀 is on another item? What happens in 10 minutes when he's on 2 more items? And all of a sudden, your 𝘀𝗀𝗏 basically needs to find a way to one-tap the 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏, one-tap the Orianna, or he just gets blown up in the process, and there's nothing you can do about it. It feels like they have to accomplish so much more than they have in this game for Team Flash to really be contested, or Team Flash is just going to have to make massive mistakes somehow in the team fighting to really lose to the side of SBTC at this point.
And don't forget, that was largely a 5v4 in favor of SBTC because Harvey had to teleport, but he could only teleport to the inner tower and then run his way towards the fight. So he arrived very late after, I think, 3 kills had already been secured from both teams combined. So you remember how I said I was going to do some calling out and then got caught out and then 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 semi-inted? I was going to call out you or 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏. I can't remember which one of you, but you said that the old guards for Team Flash hadn't really stepped up. Because I wanted to say, I think 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀 has played very well so far this split. I think week 1 there were a couple of jitters, but I think largely he's been one of the best top laners in the league.
On one hand, I think that is a valid statement in terms of, okay, again, when we talk about stats and stuff, you have to also consider what they're providing. And if 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 is receiving a fair amount of resource in the earlier stage, like what does it mean if he's doing well, right? In a game like this, this is a great example. Has 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 really done anything that's popped off the page to you that's been incredible? No, he's playing like 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏. He's farming properly. They haven't put any pressure onto him. He's just collecting wave after wave, doing the proper farming and gold gathering thing that 𝘀𝗏𝗏 needs to do. They drop a plays into the top side to help him get plates, things like that. And is he living to that? Sure. But he's not doing anything like super crazy to help win this game. He is not yet at least.
A 1v1 in the bottom lane. He's been, people have tried to collapse on him multiple times, and he's been able to get a kill back in those scenarios.
That's true, but that's been true of everybody on the map. Harvey has done that. Actually, Harvey hasn't done that, but 𝘁𝗔 has done that a number of times as well. Dante has been able to kind of counteract quite a bit. Harvey hasn't been aggressed against pretty much at all because they haven't been able to find him out of position. Like, it's a situation which, like, 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 is doing as well as...
Speaking of 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 being caught out, here we go. There's a teleport coming through. It's a 2v1. 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 is going to get popped. Never mind, he can't get it. And now Harvey, teleporting his way in, will probably just die in the process. There's a shockwave. It doesn't connect onto 𝘀𝗏𝗏. Harvey's going to get banged around. It's going to be 2 kills, both solo laners from Team Flash dying. I guess that's what you can call a cast the cursed rebel.
It's a pretty big one, yeah. Using the side lane is quite nice. Okay, Dante is going nuts right here.
Dante is going in. It doesn't even matter if it's not the best kick. He's going to go for it anyway. 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 is coming through. They are chasing. Everfrost is dropped. 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 taken down low, but Dante doesn't care. Dante's actually going to be able to tank for his support. Meanwhile, Penguin, 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏 and CBL just say, you know what? I'm just take this Baron. But 𝘁𝗔, he's just pushing in the mid lane. He's going to be able to get an inner tower. Dante and 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏, they're still going. There's no inner tower. The Baron has been secured, but 2 members of SBTC Esports will not have the Baron because Hero and 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 both die, and SBTC start off the whole play getting both of the Team Flash solo laners, and Team Flash end off the play getting both of SBTC Esports solo laners.
And now, this is really important kind of next few minutes, because all things said and done, this is a winning play for Team Flash, unless this Baron buff actually accomplishes something, right? First off, sicko mode Dante, can we get more of this all day, all night, always? Dante, you guys kind of talked about Dante not being super, super impressive. I think Dante has had a pretty impressive split, in my opinion. I personally think he's actually my favorite rookie on this team so far. And this wasn't like indicative of how his play has been all split necessarily, but this was was really cool because, again, this is a play by Team Flash where they're actually calling the bluff. They're saying, okay, take Baron. What we're going to do is we're going to take mid inner tower, we're going to take the dragon, and we're going to get multiple kills onto our jungler to put some more gold in our pockets. And we're going to challenge you to accomplish something, right? And that is what SBTC is trying to do right now with this Baron buff, is they're going to get the bottom outer tower, they're going to keep pushing, they're going to look to do some kind of significant damage to take back full control of the gold lead in this game. And they need to do that, because again, if you drop to what is effectively even gold, down 2 dragons to a team that's got a big AoE setup between the Shockwave from Orianna, the Moonlight Vigil from the Aphelios, all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a really bad situation.
Okay, Yoshino's going to knock here away. He flashes out of the Justice Punch. Emperor low as well, and Yoshino just pretty happy in this 1v2 scenario. He's going to walk his way out. Did burn the flash.
Cool.
So he does have to be a little bit more careful in the side lane now, as Penguin was thinking about potentially collapsing.
No X Games run up to the top lane as fast as possible to try to get something. Because again, we need to see them actually accomplish something with Baron. And they pulled a little bit of gold on bottom side. And right now the gold actually got... Somehow the gold is actually still like 600, 700 in favor of Team Flash, despite the bottom lane turret, despite the Baron going over. Again, this is really imperative for them to be able to actually take advantage of, but they just haven't been able to do anything with this Baron buff quite yet. Again, that bottom outer tower isn't really that much. It does let you push your wave a little better to help set up for dragons in the future. It kind of looks like they're going to be putting down topside vision. Maybe they want somebody to go push that topside as soon as they have the ability to control, or they're going to be fishing for some kind of a fight when the counter setup comes in, or they're trying to push out the wards. Maybe that's the intention from SBTC, but this Baron buff ultimately has basically got them nothing inside of this game.
And that Baron buff is going to be ending in 18 seconds time. We've got an Ocean Drake up in just under 3 minutes. And that Ocean Drake could potentially be the soul for Team Flash. And in these extended team fights, that is going to be really crucial, especially for, well, pretty much everyone. We've seen how these fights have gone. They've extended a fair amount, and we know that Team Flash are scaling as well. Things are not looking great for SBTC Esports right now.
They are not. If SBTC really wants to try to take full control of this game, they somehow need to find a way to make this team fight work into what is the side of TF. Now, I will say this. TF's team composition is really heavily based around ultimates. Like I said, Shockwave's cooldown is something to track. Moonlight Vigil's something to track. And yes, an Aphelios and an Orianna are still valuable in a fight afterwards, but those ultimates are massive game changers. And without them, it's not impossible for the side of SBT to at least compete, especially with what is now 4 almost... you're probably bridging into the area where the gold is going to be big enough for a 5th item Lucian, as opposed to what is it now? It's 3 item plus Guardian Angel 𝘁𝗔, so he's got a second life, but at the sacrifice of some combat stats that currently are held by Celebrity. Who knows? I mean, he can't go to Guardian Angel. He has to go into combat stats because he's doing the majority of the damage for the likes of these team fights, which is an important aspect to this, which is, again, any fight when those two are interacting, hopefully Celebrity is going to have the damage to be able to bring him down, and they continue to just shove up mid lane to the best of their abilities to compete against what is the side lane pushes that have been there from TF all game, and they're using this effectively, again, to try to help control some of these neutral objectives. What is this TP? What?
I didn't even... Wait, who just teleported?
Yoshino just teleported here to defend the blue buff? We got a minute until Dragon. Like, back timing's needed to start happening anyway. Why are you not just backing and then running up lane?
I don't know.
I guess he's here to compete with Vision? I guess that's it. All right, that must be it. That's probably it.
What? As you said, Rebel, sometimes you just can't analyze certain plays and you can't predict them. One thing that I do want to go back to is you talked about how Team Flash have a lot of high-value ultimates. And I don't disagree with that, but I feel that takes away from the fact that I think SBTC's ultimates are more important to their team fight than Team Flash's ultimates are to Team Flash, essentially. Like, I think if you remove the ultimates from everyone in the game, apart from Yoshino because his champion doesn't work anymore, I think Team Flash still have a better comp.
I'm on a different spectrum of this, but I see what you're getting at, right? Where it's ultimate-wise, I think they're more important for Team Flash. First rotation of abilities is far more important for SBTC.
Okay, and we just see that first rotation of abilities. Flag and Drag coming through. Dante is taken down, and that's critical. There's no jungler now for the Drake. Out comes the Moonlight Vigil. Guardian Angel will get popped up for Penguin. 𝘀🐁 trying to kite back Palette, forced to use a Wild Growth on himself. Guardian Angel has now been used up by 𝘀🐁, and he's going to die. Flag and Dragger knocked up. 𝘁𝗨's going to fall as well instantly. SBTC run Team Flash to the ground. They get 4 kills and they don't drop a single member. And it's all on that man right there, 𝘀elebrity, starting things off, burning Dante down completely.
There is no way. They can't win off this because I don't think they have the ability. Although they've got 30 seconds, 25 seconds on Yasuo. They might go for a finish. They could end here. Legitimately. They've got the wave for. Nobody's here to clear this wave. They just win off that. That has to be the most precise timer I've ever seen for a team fight. They were literally riding the line for this game, just getting completely out of reach for their team fights. And that one first rotation of abilities, picking off Dante, making sure that 𝘁𝗨's ultimate doesn't do that much, and setting up the Cataclysm with that 𝘁𝑎𝑙𝑎 ultimate, the Grand Entrance. That was all they needed. That's all they needed. One solid first rotation of abilities wins them the entire fight against a team that was probably one dragon away from really just completely winning the game.
That is the most anticlimactic ending to a game that I have ever witnessed, Rebel. I don't know what to say.
This league, 𝘀𝗀cie. Like, how could you have possibly seen that coming? We were moments from greatness for the side of Team Flash being able to take their first victory here, and actually their first win on red side in general. And they just completely lose it off the back of that play. This team is still young. This is the type of growth they need to have, because games like this should be probably 75 to 85% your game, and mistakes that like Dante made, but then the rest of the team made by getting followed up on, just cannot happen. They just can't, especially into a team that was that close to losing their scaling, that close to losing their team fight, when all you're relying on is Lucian for damage, and you're still allowing like a 𝘁𝑎𝑙𝑎 or a Jarvan Galio to do that much inside of a fight. It's unacceptable for a team, which is tough for Team Flash, because coming back from that one's going to be so hard on the mental.
Remember how I said at the start of the show, Team Flash haven't won a single series, but they've been very unlucky to not. This is why. It's stuff like this that keeps on hitting them. But we're going to throw to a break, and I feel very sorry for 𝘁𝗶 because she's going to have to try to break down that game. But we will be back in a few minutes' time and jumping on into the second game of this series. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun. So pick up your weapon and face it. There's blood on the ground, go and take it. You get one shot to make it out alive. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your bones, go and take it. This is your moment. Now is your time, so prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Rise. Welcome to the climb up, reach for the summit. Visions brave, the one false, steadily the end. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your blood, go and take it. This is your moment. Take to the skies, go. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. They will remember you. It is you fight among the dead, beneath the dirt. Do you know yet? Or do you want it? And when the giants call to ask you what you're worth, do you know if we don't die? Prove yourself and Make them remember you. Push to the limit. They will remember you. Prove yourself and pick up your weapon and face it.
This ain't where the legends come from. You know what a hero looks like. Pretty little flower, won't you sit back down and go play nice? So keep talking, keep laughing. One day you wish you had it. Other people on fire, fire. Maybe it's time they meet their dragon. If you're gonna hold me down, you're not gonna let me in into your castle walls. None of you can keep them. 'Cause if I gotta burn it all down,
Welcome back, folks. We just saw 𝘀𝑠BTC Esports take game 1 over Team Flash. How they did that, I still don't know. So 𝘀𝗶𝗶𝗹𝘀 is here to explain it to us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to talk about that. This great start from Flash in the sense that even they were able to basically completely control the top side. Dante and Yoshino were able to make sure they had a really strong top side, get a lot of push, get a lot of gold funneled, and then the rest of the map just had to sort of not lose from there. And they were doing well at the start. They were trading back kills and leaving what the moves 𝘀𝑠BTC made to sort of making them go even or losses. So it was actually Flash getting off to a pretty decent advantage, but they weren't able to bring that gold lead from Yoshino to anyone else. And though Dante did go sicko mode in the play and completely neutered the Baron attempt from 𝘀𝑠BTC by knocking off their solo laners so they couldn't actually play off multiple lanes, and then were left with the worst siege out basically possible to draft in their comp, meant there was no Baron. So it was all looking good, and then it was just one team fight into win, where Celebrity popped off, and pretty much all the stars aligned for 𝘀𝑠BTC in that fight.
The stars did align, Rebel. And one thing that I do want to bring up, something that we didn't touch in the game, because we were saying in the break how the side of Team Flash, they got ahead, but they never did anything with that. They just kept playing slowly. Do you think one of the issues for them was the fact that they didn't really have any engage? I mean, yes, they had the 𝘀𝑠BTC role, Orianna role, but it never felt like anyone was really willing or comfortable with the tools that they had to start a fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of not only do they not have something that starts a fight other than maybe like Ravid and Moonlight Vigil, which is coming out of, one of their more important players in terms of damage for the later stages, but the fact that like the majority of the game was them just not trying anything. The fact the majority of the game was them just absorbing pressure was also of cause to concern for me, which is that, again, this is a young team and they've got players who are showing some positive play, right? But if you're going to sit there and you're going to wait the entire game and you're just going to give every possibility and every chance over to the opposition to do everything on the map that they could ever want, it's going to lead to kind of bad results. Like it's just going to happen. And that's kind of what happened to them in that game. They have a superior scaling composition. Yes, it's difficult to try to like full execute when they don't have a frontliner or somebody who can try to like force a fight necessarily. But that's a situation where a good number of teams, especially some of the better teams, and not just in the VCS, but in the entirety of the world collection of professional teams, they're able to convert on a game like that very, very consistently. And it needs to be the case that they do as well. Because Flash, I mean, you can make excuses for them because they're young or because they have new players, but at some point you have to not give them any more babying time. At some point they have to learn to develop. And so things like this are things that need to be criticized, because this is stuff that in spring needs to be fixed. So keep your eye on it as the split continues and even as the series continues, because what we want to see is a legitimate effort towards winning the game rather than just trying not to lose it.
And 𝘀𝗶𝗶𝗹𝘀, is there anything that you'd like to see changed in the draft so that they can, try to win the game rather than try not to lose?
Yeah, I want to see more actual engage and a very simple engage come out from Flash, if that's what you're going to. And the key thing is put your engage on people like 𝘀𝗫𝗀, Yoshino, and Dante, because these three have the killer instinct to actually hunt for those sort of things. Dante especially. Whereas if with your big tools on like 𝗀𝗵𝗀 and 𝘁𝗀, you're not going to actually find anything, and I think that's a problem. So I want to see big engages. If Dante can pull out the 𝘀𝗀 like a Levi, that's basically your problem solved. I mean, then you are playing 𝘀𝗀, but in theory, that sort of thing is what you want.
Levi made it work.
Levi makes it. Levi can make anything work if he puts his mind to it.
Well, we are getting ready to jump on into picks and bans for game 2, and Rebel, over to the side of 𝘀𝑠BTC. They utilize a lot of resources towards this, but they utilize a lot of resources and sometimes unsuccessfully. Do you think that it's a case of they should stop trying to do it or keep on doing it until they do eventually work out?
You're talking about 𝘀𝑠BTC utilizing, especially what was Penguin's ganks in the
yes
entirety of that game. Yeah, I think better creativity with how they're using it or more defined setup for how they're using it. Because again, just fishing with a Jarvan is probably not the greatest way to capitalize on the strength of that champion in the earlier stages of the game. You just can't do that. Like, you can't just fish with Jarvan EQ and hope that it's gonna, beat your opponent most of the time. Of course, last game being the exception, but that's not to say that there wasn't purpose behind what he was doing. The champion's fine. I like the aggression out of Penguin. That's kind of what Penguin's whole shtick is in my mind on this team, is being some of this early game aggression. So I'm hoping that stays consistent. I'm just hoping that they're able to capitalize on it more. If they have to do it less for higher success rate, I'm fine with that too. If they have to do half as much but they get twice as many to work, that's fine. That's excruciatingly acceptable in my case in terms of trade-off.
Well, it is the LeBlanc first pick for 𝘁𝗵, and 𝘁𝗵, we were talking about champions that 𝘁𝗵 can play. We mentioned the Syndra. You then touched on the Orianna and LeBlanc, which Rebel disagrees with, but the blind pick, LeBlanc, we've been seeing the Lissandra as the answer to this so far today.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly safe option into Hero, because how likely is he to be practiced on the Lissandra? That said, Galio is also an okay answer into it, so we might just fall back to that. But without the Jarvan being picked up, the likelihood of that also goes down. But it's actually interesting from SBTC, just going for a solid jungle support core that they can hit around the map and do whatever they want with. And it's also worth mentioning, CBL is the hook god of the VCS, or has been in previous splits. Thresh, Blitzcrank, they were his thing, and he was nuts on them. So it's good comfort so far from SBTC.
And the Blitzcrank is mentioned, Rebel. Blitzcrank is that counter into the Thresh. I personally would love to see a Blitzcrank. We've seen it a little bit. I definitely casted on it. I can't remember if it was in the VCS or not. But taking a Blitzcrank this early is always very risky.
The Blitzcrank in this case is going to be playing against a Jinx because that's Celebrity's preference pick into the Jhin. It's not going to be Aphelios as much as they've been leaning into it with the likes of the Thresh, because that was a possibility of coming out. But as soon as I saw the Jhin, you know that it's not going to be the case. So now you have to worry about the positioning of the Jinx and how you can actually punish in this particular case if you are, because you're trying to punish what is the Thresh's positioning. But it feels like a melee champion into a lane like this where you have double range, you have the ability to play make, you've got a good amount of wave clear to work with in the early stages to compete with that Jhin. I'm not saying that it's not a good pick necessarily in this setup. It's just more so that you have to be a little bit more careful, because Aphelios' early game is, in my brain, a lot more kind of fallible against something like a Blitzcrank, just because, again, he doesn't have as much control of the wave at level 1, doesn't have as much control of the wave until he has Infernum behind him, and he's able to wave clear really effectively. It's just a much more challenging system than against the likes of what an Aphelios might have brought in this case. So I think maybe Blitzcrank could have been considered if it weren't for that pick. Now it has to be considered a lot more in the confines of this game.
Well, we get the final bans coming through from both sides. We've seen that Leona ban 𝘁𝗶, and now the 𝘁𝗵 getting taken away as well. The Crocodile isn't available either.
Yeah, no, taking away big engage and initiators from the side of the veterans for Flash is a good idea. I mean, those are the only two picks that we're looking at left. But now we need to see where's Hero going. He's had a couple of his picks taken away. Do we see him go to something along the lines of maybe a Sylas, something that sort of gives you that AP damage, and it's been a top laner in the past, so he can almost certainly play it. Ryze would be a little bit interesting. Again, it has been a top laner, so Hero's probably fiddled with it, or he's just spent the last week and a bit just boot camping mid laners in solo queue, which would be an interesting idea. Rakan, similarly, kind of an interesting pick into the Thresh for an early game setup, but as time goes on, great engage on Palette. Just don't let him try and hold a wave.
Yeah, oh god, you just reminded me of that. Okay. But again, we've got Yoshino on this Jace, and is this Malphite actually going to get locked in here, Rebel?
Yeah.
It would give so much engage to SBTC.
It is. Not only is it engaged, but it's also a decent setup for Xin Zhao to attack the Jace in top lane. This is something that people go to all splits, and it sets up for an incredible teamfight composition from the side of SBTC, where they've got Ryze and they've got Jinx. The amount of damage that you can do to multiple targets when you've got the flux across them is great, but Jinx is for that for the most part, and the single target damage can be focused a lot more by hero in the mid lane. You can go for a lot more kind of focusing down the proper targets in this case. And Malphite also has an unreal amount of squishy targets that he gets to fight against. Now, LeBlanc is slippery, Viego's a little slippery, Rakan's a little slippery, which is my one concern. So picking the right moment for this engage is going to be necessary for the side of Viper. But I really do think that SBTC's composition came together quite nicely, all things considered. Hero's Ryze into LeBlanc is going to be a fun one, because Ryze at one point was considered a decent pick into LeBlanc, but much like the Lissandra matchup, especially because of how fast this turned during the course of the season, we saw the opposite start to become true. When mid laners got more accustomed, they started realizing that chains were absolutely absurd into a champion who can't actually hit you with an ability from outside the chain.
Yeah, chain range is way too long. It should absolutely be gutted. I hate LeBlanc.
Yeah.
I love LeBlanc. But enough about LeBlanc. Marby, I'd love to get your thoughts on the draft and who you think's come out on top.
Yeah, I think one of SBTC's biggest things has always been their coordination. And, I mean, it's very simple comps. It's front to back. You have the top jungle go in, two big carries, and then CBL to help sort of heal for them. Flash, I think, are going to run into a very similar problem as last time, where Yoshino and Dante might be able to get off to a pretty effective lead, but they probably won't, but I don't think they have the ability to really convert that. So it's actually, we're going to have to see how Palette goes and if he's able to find big engages himself, but it seems a little hard up against like the against Penguin on the Penguin on Xin Zhao and the Thresh. So I'm still leaning SBTC.
Okay, Rebel, what about you? You leaning to an SBTC 2-0?
Yeah.
Doubters, the lot of you. Okay, I've got some fun stats, because I always have some stats up my sleeve. How many games do you think Hero has played competitively on the Rise?
6.
0. He's never played competitively with Rise. So this is his competitive Rise debut, and it's actually the same for 𝘀𝗀. Never played a game on the Malphite before. I mean, he only started playing this year, so makes a bit more sense. But for both players, making a debut on a champion, which I think is quite an interesting narrative, really.
Would you mind me nitpicking here for a second? Wouldn't that be a lack of stats?
Yes.
So you said you had stats, but you actually had was no stats. So you
had
lied
the
to
stats
me.
of a lack of stats.
you don't have any stats. I was expecting a number to come out, and yes, 0 is a number, but also you just basically you don't have stats.
You study maths and physics, right? You know that 0 is technically not a number, right? It's a concept, because 0 doesn't exist.
I mean, everything doesn't exist if you think about it as a concept.
Okay, let's not go into philosophy here. Okay, this is just too much of a tangent. Let's take a look at this game. Both junglers starting on their red buffs, and well, for Dante anyway, he's actually going to be full clearing his bottom side.
Yes. See, now Dante is going to get into a mold of full clearing this game. Why? I don't see a lane that he really has a bunch of agency in. I mean, you've got Jace, who you want to be ganking for, but it's into a Malphite who isn't exactly the easiest to try ganking, especially as two champions who don't really have that much CC combined even between them. You look to mid lane, and usually Ryze is going to have very heavy wave control in the early stages of the game, so it's not going to be particularly easy there either. And then bottom lane, I mean, this Thresh is usually quite good into Rakan, prevents any sort of aggression from the Rakan coming out, because the Flay is a nice tool, the Death Sentence is a nice tool, the Lantern is good if your ADC happens to be the target of affection of a flash and a grand entrance from coming out. And so what that kind of culminates in is that this Viego is going to be a lot more focused on farming than even a normal Viego probably is. And Penguin knows this, and he says, okay, we're going to put down the Jace very quickly. Last game was a little bit of a mistake.
Yoshino had quick feet in game 1, but I don't think he's got quick enough feet. He's able to flash out the when he comes like... Okay, yeah, no way. The dash in, Penguin picks up the kill. Dante is hovering around this top side, but I don't think he wants to take this 1v2, or maybe he does. Penguin is still here. Does he go in for this? I think he will. It's sidestepped, or the Spectral Maw is sidestepped, and Penguin's just going to keep on running as Yoshino teleports into the lane.
This is a very tough situation to find themselves in, right? Team Flash has put themselves in a position where they don't really have a particularly well-winning lane across the board, and their jungler is more farming intensive. They've also given Penguin a champion that can go pretty well early. This is not the ideal situation. This even actually could go. The one place of power they have is that Jhin is a lot more of a powerhouse on the earlier stages than what a Jinx can actually bring to the table. So if they can somehow leverage that was a good situation of it, which is like the interaction between Thresh and Rakan is that Thresh is going to be better most of the time. But when it comes to Jinx versus Jhin in the earlier stages, you're going to take the bid on the Jhin far before the Jinx. And so that 2v2 ends up not, unless you have a really good engagement where Celebrity gets a few autos of additional return ahead of time before his enemy does. That's going to feel fine. And you can see that they're putting some effort into making sure that the Viego's life is a little bit easier. The pushing power of these two isn't completely zero. Maybe I had ascertained a little bit too heavily in the drafting phase where I talked about how Jinx rockets make it harder for the Jhin to just shove in and do anything they want as opposed to the Aphelios in the early levels.
Yeah. And something that I do want to touch on again, kind of following from this point of pushing power, is the fact that for Team Flash in pretty much all lanes, especially once LeBlanc gets a couple of items and can actually get through a wave, as we've got our Lantern, the Flash Flay comes through, J3's forced to flash, it's a good two-man and knock-up Palette dashing out, trying to get some heals through, but J3's just getting run down, and again, Dante too late to the party. It's the second kill of the game for SBTC, and it is a second kill for Penguins in 𝘀.
For a moment right there, it kind of looked like they were waiting, but as soon as they saw the Shroud come out from the Viego, they just rushed to kill. They were going to try to get it onto Celebrity, which is the intelligent move to do, but taking it on the Xin 𝘀 is not a problem either. In fact, I actually kind of prefer it on the Xin 𝘀 because he's got plenty of places to use that gold, which is quite nice. So it is another instance of which Viego is trying to make a counterplay happen against the likes of SBTC in their bottom lane, which is sitting here attempting to set up a play against them, and it's early game advantage very heavily to the side of SBTC, who have been able to make things work. Unfortunately that the hook didn't hit, because again, that might have actually saved quite a bit of pressure here. That probably would have led to Celebrity getting this kill instead, but it's okay. Again, it's the Xin 𝘀 taking the kill has absolutely no difference in terms of bearing, I would say, this early into the game.
And to be honest, as soon as that Lantern came through, there was pretty much nothing J3 and Palette could do. They seem to have played that interaction near perfectly, but so much CC from the side of SBTC, and that's despite CBL missing the death sentence. Penguin can just dive on, 3 talent strike, gets the knock up, and it's pretty much a done deal.
Easy enough, all things considered. I'm curious about how now neutral objective control works. You have fully upgraded boots for J3, who goes into 2 longsword, but that also means that he doesn't go for the Noon Quiver very, very quickly inside of the game. So Celebrity's got more attack speed than already exists, and the Jhin already didn't have much attack speed. So while able to deliver auto attacks at a much better rate, I would say from the range and the combination with mobility, it's so much harder. Palette is on the very wrong side of the map right now.
Trying to clear out some vision, getting caught by CBL and Penguin. And it is the 3rd kill of the game, and the 3rd kill for Penguin, who is
bottom lane. Oh, okay. Thank you, observers.
Okay, J3 just died to Celebrity. So that happened. Celebrity used the heal, and J3 didn't have it. So
I was kind of hoping to see that, because I saw it start, because I saw Celebrity step up to J3.
You'll get a replay. You'll get a replay when SBTC dive in the mid lane.
That's fair. That might happen. Or the dragon will prompt a fight. There we go. Yeah, right as this thing started to ramp up. Yeah, it's just Celebrity who I think even had a few auto attack opportunities that kind of got messed up. Oh, they traded W's even? That was kind of crazy. Yeah, good job by Celebrity using that heal, because it won him the situation in the end. Attacking at the right time during the Jhin gun as well, when you don't have a full gun and you also don't have a reloading gun, because as soon as that happens, that's the trade back the other way. Okay. And 𝘀𝗀𝗋 is finding solo kills against Viper. He is down 26 CS and just found a solo kill against the Jays. The game is chalked, 𝘀𝗀𝗋. The game is chalked.
Boys. GG, well played. SBTC take the 2-0 against Team Flash.
Oh goodness, we're a little early to call that, but come on,
yeah,
this is how the lane should play
right?
out, to be real. Yeah, it's still game.
Palette got a kill on CBL, so that happened in the bottom lane. As Yoshino just can't. Yoshino can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, he got ulted on.
Oh, it's a seismic shard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Flash for that, in fairness.
Good enough. He did flash for that, in fairness. It's still a very good play from 𝘀𝗀𝗀. Again, just trying to make sure that they, that there isn't too much CS kind of caught. They're still not denying him in a bunch of gold, but they're doing better of kind of tailoring his CS this game. Unfortunate that Palette also picked up a kill on the bottom side of the map. They were able to kill 𝘂𝗶𝗹, looked like under a tower because of a crashing wave, which was upsetting because, again, you really want that gold into somebody who actually can do something with it during the course of this game. Not to say the Rakan can't do anything with gold, more so just that, again, when you're down in composition, when you're down 4 kills early, when your jungler is down, it's a tough situation. But he held the wave. Punished.
Oh, no. And in the end, the wave crashes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This is why 𝘀𝗀𝗀 supports out there. You don't catch the wave for your ADCs. They don't care about you. They just want gold.
See, the thing is, if you catch it, then they get mad at you for manipulating their wave, and if you don't catch it, they get mad at you for not catching their wave. They just get to be mad at you. That's how it works.
When you play Lulu and you ult yourself to be able to catch a wave for your ADC, and your ADC's just done great. Honestly, it's just it's the life of a servant, and your master is just never happy with you.
I'm gonna call you on a language check right there. I'm gonna ask that not be used. The word master is not allowed to be used on this server again.
Okay, I do apologize. Okay, we've got a Rift Herald that is starting up, and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 is making his way down.
Okay, we're flipping at Rift Herald. That's what we like to see.
It's what we love. It's a 5v5. That's a decent shock blast coming through. Deadly Flourish, not going to snipe anyone down, but the curtain calls will come through. Dante's getting run down. He's not going to be able to... Wait, no! Palette stole the Rift Herald! And Team Flash get a kill as well. But we actually have to check that we're not being trolled by the game and make sure that it is actually on Palette.
Okay, can we show the scoreboard, please? I know we have a tendency to keep that off the board for as long as humanly possible so that we can get a bunch of negative space view. But it would be nice to see if the actual Rift Herald went into the pocket of Palette. No? Okay, it was Jace. Okay, yeah, it was 𝘂𝗀𝗀𝗀 who picked it up.
And he's getting more gold for himself.
Grab more gold for himself, which is, again, they're not shutting down the Jace. This is something that happened last game. The difference is the rest of the match winning and obviously punished.
I mean, you got to feel bad for Dante there. He had no idea that was coming. He thought, I'm just going to go to my red buff. And Penguin and CBL were just waiting for him. And they killed him.
Mm-hmm. And now bottom lane is the potential dive threat. Although Palette and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 don't seem to think that's the case. Because they're just charging full throttle into Celebrity right now. They did back off, I think, once they got on the corner. They saw what was happening. Celebrity is just delivering rockets, shutting in bottom. And they're working towards the dragon, I have to assume. They're up a fair amount of gold. What happened here to actually lead to this being stolen? First off, 𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 took way too much damage during this. And I know he went diving. How? Like, how did you give that up? Ugh.
So we did get baited then in the last time. So we probably did see an animation where it said someone got the Rift Herald, or
and then it was wrong,
and then it changed.
Like that, yeah. Okay, we're just getting trolled by the client now. It's not even VETV anymore. We have to blame the client. That's a low blow. Okay, we don't like it.
Okay, anybody trading on his hero, and Dante is on his way over.
He's too strong.
He won't be able to get close enough.
Look at Hero.
Hero's 40 CS up on Harvey. Okay,
he's massive. Yeah, where has this been? Like, Hero, like, why are we seeing like Set the entire first week? Why are we seeing like Galio when he can play a Rise like this? Like, this is kind of incredible. The Merc Treads are already done. That's kind of the advantage that's been held. It's the fully completed Merc Treads and a Ruby Crystal over top of what the LeBlanc has in her inventory right now, and that makes a difference because, again, LeBlanc no penetration yet because the penetration she's set up and taken Palette was going to go down, but not going to go down. But now he's going to try to wrestle away territory to make sure that the red buff is going to remain theirs, but that's probably not going to happen because their jungler is elsewhere.
So 𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 has just clarified as well that it was Palette who secured the Rift Herald. It was just 𝘂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 who picked up the eye.
That's fair. That's understandable. I'm more curious about why Palette was able to confirm that Rift Herald as opposed to anyone else.
Because he's a good support. I don't know. It's the clutch factor. Penguin looking for the first strike of the game at 13 minutes.
This has taken a while. They had this set up like 2 minutes ago. What happened to that setup?
They went for Rift Herald.
No. After that, because it was after the Rift Herald. They had been shoving with the Jinx rockets on bottom lane when we talked about it, and then we had the jump to the Rise. they had this set up for a very long time. They've had wave pressure in bot basically since that Rift Herald play. It's just a little slow, I guess. It's fine. We're not that contemplative of SBT.
I've got a question for you, right?
Sure.
So this is Hero's first competitive game on the Rise.
Yes.
Do you think he will die first or get a kill first?
I think he'll get a kill first. I think he might get a kill right here. Harvey has to be careful.
Might die there as well.
That was the major. I mean, that was all of Harvey's combo. He just ulted for that. That was double chain with a Q, and the distortion had already been used. Like, that's the full combo, and it did maybe 40% of the health. And Hero wasn't able to hit the second half of the Q.
There's a run warp coming in as well. Hero's over the wall. Hero's not going to be able to get the kill, but the rest of Team Flash are showing up. As that is sidestepped by Yoshino. And this is a 3v4 scenario. Team Flash, well, Dante just doesn't care right now. He's just pushing in the mid lane. And it's going to allow SBTC to be able to walk out of this one. As a real chain's not going to connect from Harvey. He's forced to return back to... Actually, what do you call it? Because what does Harvey return to? Because you can't say he's returning to his clone. It's just... And it's not like Zed where you return to a shadow.
Shade?
Shade? No, it's not a shade.
Why isn't it?
Because it's not a shade.
Why isn't it?
What does that even mean? A shade? It's not like a shadow, is it?
It's sort of like a shadow.
It's not really.
It leaves a figure of her behind her, right? Like,
does it?
Or at least a location. It leaves something there. There's something traceable back where it was. Otherwise, you wouldn't know where you could go back to.
I believe that doesn't exist. That's just there so you know it's there. Because otherwise you'd be like, where did I leave my image?
That's a shade, right? That's something there. That's what you go back to. I agree.
We're getting some suggestions from Mabinogi and Carrick, which I don't agree with.
It's a shade when she presses distortion. There's a shade of herself in the back.
Let's agree to disagree. Anyway, no. Yes.
You asked me for my ideas, and then you deny them and say, let's agree to disagree. You didn't have an idea. We can't agree to disagree because you didn't come up with anything.
An image. Returning to her image.
Cool.
That'd be mine, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Great idea.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know there have been some suggestions coming through in the chat as well, but I don't think any of them are superior to what we've come up with.
I like Echo the best. I saw somebody say Echo. That's the proper way to say it. I like. Although Echo has maybe an Echo where he goes back to, which is my one problem with that. If you need a new phrase, maybe that's the issue. But like, Echo is probably the most accurate.
I mean, with Echo, it's just you're returning in time, right? Because that's how it works. So Harvey goes in for a quick combo. Curtain Call comes through. CBL tanking all of this for now. And Emperor says, hey, I'm even tankier. Let me tank this all up. Shock Blast comes in. CBL Hero taking some damage. And Team Flash on the offensive at the moment.
They are. Surprising amount of aggression out of Team Flash, given the early game that has been coming through from the side of SBTC, as well as just how easy it is for them to exploit, how quickly a fight can kind of go awry here for the side of Team Flash if Emperor hits a good ultimate and the damage is there for backup, especially since, I mean, Hero is here and Hero is very, very powerful. That's bad. Yeah, Harvey had to get out of dodge very quickly.
Ooh, Shock Blast BBL!
Okay,
how
there we
does
go.
SB...
They're trying to flip around Rift Herald, and like Team Flash is not gonna let him flip around Rift Herald. Go CBL, go.
Harvey
Get out of there.
cancels Hero's back. Another Shock Blast comes in. Okay, so it's going to be Rift Herald going over to the side of Team Flash, which will be some more gold going to them. Considering this is 7 kills to 2, Team Flash are only trailing by 2,000 gold, which is not a lot.
It was actually, for the side of Team Flash, I know Clockwork talked about this on the desk earlier this week, I believe. Or last week, my apology. He talked about this last week. Which is that Team Flash's actual setup around Rift Herald is usually pretty good. They have one of the better actual setups for Rift Herald in the entire league. And while they don't always win the flip, most of the time they don't win the flip. This game, it's been on display where, like, their first one, they were able to kind of get their way back into the river. And right there, they actually used a really impressive combination of both topside river warding, which you can see on the minimap right now, as well as, like, a really nice little concave, which prevented any sort of really hard engage from Emperor that hits 2-3 people. Same with Penguin, who couldn't hit 2-3 people, and that meant that like Jace could poke away relatively easily. You combine that with like a little bit of chip damage from LeBlanc and Jhin over time, and eventually it's just way too hard to actually continue to look for a full-on engagement, and it shoves them out. Again, really, really impressive stuff. That's one of the biggest things that Flash can be commended for, is their setups around some of the Rift Heralds, because they have been very good.
And we have confirmation actually from Carrick. It's called a pad. because that's what it's called in the game when you read the ability. So you return to the pad.
No.
It's called the return pad. Yes.
Sorry.
And I will be using it extensively for the rest of the cast just to infuriate you. It's a Drake picked up by the side of SBTC Esports, their second of the game so far. The Rift Herald is dropped by Team Flash. Okay, no, it's not. That's going to be the engage from the Malphite. Palette just gets absolutely popped. And it's just going to be 1 kill for SBTC. They won't overcommit for anything else, but they've got a minion wave pushing through in the mid lane, so they can look to potentially get an outer tower.
And they're using this kind of advantage. The flash ultimate from 𝘀𝗶𝗃 is good enough for 1 kill and to set up a an outer tower push, which is fantastic from the side of SBTC. The problem is they're going to have to try to manifest this in other ways, because you can't just always rely on this flash timer from 𝘀𝗀𝗃 to be able to find these great little engages on a multiple members. You find too, I do think Penguin's ultimate, it kind of disengaged 𝘁𝗀𝗃 low-key, although he is the LeBlanc, so it's already hard to try to get an engagement. So they just take their kill on 𝘁𝗏𝗏. I want to see more of it. I almost want to see Penguin try to engage before the likes of 𝘀𝗀𝗃, just to try to set up a better version of a Malphite ultimate where he can pick a more secluded area during the course of the fight to really attack towards, where it's like, okay, if 𝘁𝗏 starts to veer to the left, you can aim more towards the left to make sure that there's going to be an attack on the target that they're really trying to pick off, rather than forcing with like a flash engagement into a couple of members that are gathered up just to try to pick off anybody you can during the process of a play. Now, this early, that's perfectly fine, because they were looking for ways to continue to exploit some of their lead. Hero just killed 𝘁𝗃. Okay,
Hero killed 𝘁𝗃. Meanwhile, Yoshino, again, people on SBTC surviving on sliver of HP. 𝗀𝗶𝗹 won't survive. He is dead. Super Mega Death Rocket. 𝘁𝗏 able to avoid it. Takes a blast cone, returns to his team. He gets a lantern from Dante as well. The soul stealed. Penguin actually manages to make his way out. Deadly Flourish not quite going to be able to lock him down. And again, SBTC Esports, I believe, coming out on top, and they're actually starting up the Baron.
Hey, by the way, Hero just got his first kill and second kill during that process without dying. So,
good job, Hero.
Yeah, good job, Hero. You asked me that question earlier, whether Hero was going to get a first kill or he was going to get a first death. And believe it or not, he got his first kill. So, a little bit of
and you actually said kill as well. Okay, we've got a curtain call coming through. Can they steal the Baron? No, they cannot. A fourth shot, not quite going to snipe onto Celebrity. It was very, very close. Just a pixel out, and Celebrity has a nice lantern to take himself out. Grand entrance completely whiffed, and SBT Esports will make their way out to safety.
And now with the Baron buff, they have a comfortable lead, 5,000 gold. They've got what is a Baron buff that's probably not going to accomplish all that much in terms of tower taking quite yet early on into the game. This could be used for a couple of things. It's mostly going to be used, I think, in this case to help set up for the third dragon. And if they're able to get it into that position and they can maintain their 5,000 gold lead up until that point, things look great. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 was here, no mana. I mean, he's just kind of, oh my goodness, he didn't even move. Like, that was a really tough situation to watch. Okay, and then
Yoshino gets so close to getting this kill.
That was a lot of damage, and he's very lucky that Hero is very lucky that he was able to live through that onslaught of damage. That was way too close. That rocket also from Celebrity, if that tags, that's a kill onto 𝘁𝗏, and this game probably looks even worse than it is right now, because that's almost certainly a third kill going over to their team, and no way that Dante and 𝘁𝗏𝗃 can actually take the fight against Penguin with Celebrity right behind them, especially with Hero's TP. So they probably pulled a Baron. They might even pull mid tower off that. So that's kind of the main difference here. But again, it's SBTC exploiting this composition. They're doing an incredible job of making sure to use these team fighting ultimates together in comparison. And yes, Hero did just pull 2 hero kills, which is quite nice. In his back pocket is the Rise. He can begin to side lane because there's not much that can actually stop him as long as it's not Yoshino across from him, because he's got the damage.
And all the while, SBTC just keep on pushing in the mid lane. They get the inner tower, and now they can look for the inhibitor tower as well. Yoshino just trying to find some empowered shock blast, but unable to do anything so far. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 trying to poke, able to find a bit of damage onto CBL, but nowhere near enough. As the inhibitor tower will fall. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 again looking for a potential trade. But again, all he can do is throw a Sigil of Malice, Ethereal Chains, and that's it. Then he's got to wait another 10 seconds for the combo to be back up. Do that again, and okay, maybe Penguin's lost 200 HP. So we have a curtain call. Penguin, one more would be enough, but 𝘀𝗀𝗃's going to be tagging this one. There's a realm warp here again. The realm warp. Oh no! The Malphite's been left behind. 𝘀𝗀𝗃, what is it with the VCS and people not taking realm warps?
He was trying. It looked like he got left out on the very edge of it, unfortunately, as he's not able to. This is actually super tragic for multiple reasons. They probably should have been pushing that far. They had Baron buff to reset really quickly, and they only had about 45 seconds until the dragon was coming up. And now, not only do they have only the 10 seconds until the dragon's up and they have no pressure in the river, they also don't have their Malphite with a TP. So they lose this dragon, which is the whole point to that Baron probably was just to get this dragon. It's more valuable than the mid tower. And now they did get mid inhibitor, which was quite nice. So pushing that far did net them something extremely valuable. But I would have been more than willing to just take mid inhibitor tower and dragon over mid inhibitor here for the most part. I know this is kind of a lower wave clear composition. So maybe if they can exploit it by just like rushing up mid lane with something, if they plan on dealing a death blow before the next true objective or at the next objective, they plan on like taking this Baron and just running it down mid and immediately winning the game. But if that's not the case, I feel like that dragon would have been so much more of a definitive game-ending move if they were able to get the Infernal Soul.
Penguin's thinking about going for a dive. Heroes on the other side of the map. Penguin going to engage onto Dante, but the Deadly Flow, she's going to lock him down. Crescent Guard comes through. There's a Lantern, but all the wards are on top. 3-man engage. Penguin will flash his way out to safety as the box is dropped, and Harvey's going to be able to get the kill onto the Xin Zhao. Dante stealing the soul away, but can he do anything more with that? 𝘁𝗀𝗰𝗋 is on the run. Celebrity just going to run him down. Flashing forward, the zap sidestep. Celebrity just needs one more auto, but will not be able to get in range, and overall, it is 1 kill for 1. Mid lane up for jungler.
Easy enough. Close enough. Okay. This is actually 𝘀𝗶𝗹𝘀. He was in some trouble right there. That 4-shot might have actually been more than enough to execute him.
Okay, but Dante is here as well. The Flay comes through, is on it to the chompers. Yoshino will survive. The grand entrance comes through. Hero's going to be able to pick up the kill. That is a questionable Everfrost from a hero. Dante locked up, trying to get onto 𝘀𝗶𝗹, not going to be able to do it. Pallet fails the grand exit and will also die. And I have a feeling that might be a game.
I want him to stack this wave on the tower and then come in on top of this wave. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what he needed to do. Really great to stop.
Run, Harvey, run. Oh, okay.
This is why I wanted him to do it, because I knew this was coming out from Harvey. He's got the distortion, but it doesn't matter because he's rising. He just gets the single target down. I was so hoping that he was going to do it right on top of the wave, and it was going to clear half the wave too, so that all of it was coming together in one fell swoop to be able to lose this potential push. But it just doesn't matter. The gold was there. SPTC, they do a great job exploiting what their composition was able to do early. They had no slowing down the Jinx, the Rise, any of these members, and they're able to get them grouped up enough to actually find a win as SPTC take that one in far easier fashion than in game number 1.
It was a very good performance actually from SBTC and looked more like the SBTC esports that we saw in week 1. And again, Flash showing that, yeah, they probably should have got one game, but again, overall, SBTC looked like the better team over the series.
I don't think that was surprising to a bunch of people. I know you're not one of them. But for those of us who aren't living on Jupiter for some odd reason. Yeah, Team Flash, they're continuing. That first game was showing some signs of improvement. Their ability to absorb pressure was there for a very big part of it. That game 2 was a lot less to hang your hat on because they kind of got run around both in the drafting phase, they got run around during the team fighting phase. Their Rift Herald setup continues to be the one crux of their composition that works out very well in their favor, but they haven't been able to figure out how to really kind of adapt to it. So a game like that, their rookies did not look great. Yoshino was pretty much the only one that had fantastic plays. I know the one steal came out from Paulette, so I'll give him credit for that at least. But a game nonetheless that was for the most part just run by the side of SBTC.
And let's bring 𝘀𝗶𝗶 back into this equation because SBTC, well, they dominated Flash in game 2.
Yeah, it was really good stuff coming out from them. We saw an actually fantastic Rise performance coming out of Hero, showing he has moved on to these mid lane players. He's made the transition in the role swap pretty much full time now, I would imagine. And we saw, of course, big plays out of the bot lane. Penguin was everywhere on the map, looking like an actual star jungler, whereas in the first game he was just throwing himself, trying desperately, but he actually this time sort of came in and hit things that were actually meant to be ganked, not just sort of throwing in and hoping for the best because he has a Galio to follow, but this time actually setting up ganks that could work. And that led into a very nice snowball, bit of a gold lead. They stumbled a little bit around that over pushing for that inhibitor, but we saw at the end that they were able to just take the big gold lead and generally just out teamfight with beautiful plays from CBL and Celebrity, Hero as well. I do have to dock points from CBL for flaying people out of the Jinx rocket, which could have been a massive pop-off. But outside that, yeah, fantastic game from SBTC.
And actually, that is the first time that Malphite has won a game in the VCS or Winter Split. Been played 2 times so far. Once by Hero when he went back into the top lane as Artifact returned, and once by Yoshino. Rebel, I don't want to talk about Flash too much more. I want to talk about SBTC because we essentially said, can they join 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝘀 and 𝘀𝗀 the Sky? With this performance and what we've seen so far from 𝘀𝗀 the Sky and 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀, not only this week but over the split, do you think this SBTC team is good enough to take games off them?
I mean, they did it in week 1 against the side of Saigon, where I think Saigon actually looked the worst that they'd looked, for the entirety of the split. The important part about where we're at right now in the split is that we're about to get this massive shift. Tomorrow is 11:23 and the kickoff of all of that, and the kickoff of the second half of the split. And right now we're broken into 3 groups. We talked about this. It's Cerberus, 𝘀𝗀xe, 𝗀𝗏 competing for the top 3 spots. Can 𝗀𝗏 actually capture a spot? Can 𝘀𝗀xe? Can anyone dethrone Cerberus? Basically, is the rule there. Our bottom 2 teams in 𝘀𝗏xe and 𝘁𝗀𝗏, who are currently competing to make sure that they're not the worst team in the league, although both of them are probably going to end up in those bottom 2 positions. And then we have this cluster in the middle competing for our 4th playoff spot, where all of the interest and intrigue is, which is that SBTC had a rough set of 4 games where they played 4 of the best teams in the league, and they've showed that they can beat 2 worse teams than them in 𝘁𝗀𝗏 and Flash, and they beat Saigon. Saigon did the same thing, but they beat 𝘀𝗀𝗀 the Sky, and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 the Sky did the same thing, except they beat SBTC. So now all 3 of them are going to get super hard tested during the course of this next set, in that not only can they have to adapt to this new preseason, but they are now in equal standing competing with one another to try to jump into that 4th place spot. How quickly can they adapt that fast to what is a very changing meta and a landscape that's going to be different, and how many of them can actually test not just each other, but like 𝗀𝗏 or 𝘀𝗀xe or Cerberus? Can any of these teams actually pull games off of those teams? Because that's what's really going to be the difference maker in the end.
And if we could just get the standings up on the screen, and we can essentially break down how everything is looking, Darby, because how do you view the split right now? Because Rebel said it's in 3 groups, but I kind of see it more in 5 groups almost, because Cerberus just looked by far and away the best team in the league.
I'm kind of seeing it in 8 groups.
Well, I mean,
so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different scores, 6 different groups. No, we have Cerberus has been consistently one of the better teams, but they have been fallible. They've dropped games to bottom tier teams just through dumb mistakes, bad vision setups. But they are, of course, really good. We saw a little bit of a fumble today against 𝘀𝗀 the Sky, even, and that means I'm not willing to put them like a tier above 𝘀𝗀xe and 𝗀𝗏. And I think 𝗀𝗏, those two losses are still that first week, and the improvement from week 1 to week 2, it looked like they were just super rusty, and they shook it off immediately, and they've been on fire pretty much ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, rebel sniggering, but let's take a look to the games that are coming up in the next couple of days, because I think these are actually, I'm really looking forward to casting the games tomorrow, because we've got the battle for 2nd place between 𝘀𝗀xe and 𝗀𝗏. We've then got the battle for 4th place between 𝘀𝗀 the Sky and 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀. And then on Friday, we've got the battle of the week, as 𝘀𝗀xe likes to put it, of Team Flash against Team 𝘁𝗀𝗏.
And then we have Call of the Week, which is Cerberus versus SBTC.
I mean, Cerberus against anyone is a Call of the Week at the moment.
It's a little bit late for Thanksgiving, but we are slaughtering chickens en masse.
The important part about this, right, I think in the grand scheme of things, is that I actually don't care how these games go, right? I don't care whether 𝘀𝗀xe beats 𝗀𝗏. I don't care whether 𝗀𝗏 beats 𝘀𝗀xe. I don't care about Sky, 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀, TF versus TS, and SBTC versus TES. These games are going to be so much different now that there should be a bunch of changes to meta picks, to, now that there's comeback goal. There's so many new mechanics that are added. And again, I feel as though, like every league, we're going to be slow to changes, but the first teams that make the adaptations are going to be the ones that have all of the advantage and all the momentum coming into the second half of the split. So it's a matter of picking out and dicing out who has the best strategy, who has come up with the most stuff, who's been innovating, who's actually able to work on the stuff that like they've been trying to practice for this patch and able to make it work most effectively. because those teams are going to be the ones that you actually have to keep your eye on. If 𝘀WWE comes out and they're playing the same stuff they did in the first half of the split, and 𝘀𝗀 has all new tech and they beat them over the head with it, we have to be worried about 𝘀WE's future inside of the league just because all of a sudden they didn't have the creativity to beat one of the top teams. But they also just don't have the new stuff. This is important stuff to track far more than the actual record of the games, which do themselves have importance. Again, like you said, challenge for second place, challenge for fourth place is humongous. But I'm far more looking at what these teams are doing with their time during this preparation phase.
So I want to end this with looking forward to tomorrow and looking forward to how the teams will perform on the preseason patch, because when this split started, and this was after a summer of no League of Legends in the VCS, it was 𝘀WWE who looked like the best team. 𝘀WWE and 𝘀𝗏, really.
Yeah.
𝘀𝗀 had a very bad reading of the meta. So I want to get your takes on what we think is going to happen come tomorrow, come the preseason patch. Do we think 𝘀𝗀 are going to be struggling again with a new patch, or do you think they are ready to adapt? And again, the same for the likes of 𝘀WWE, 𝘀𝗏. Who do we think is going to be the best to adapt to the new meta?
So, jumping off history, I would say 𝘀𝗀 is one of the teams that'll be the best and the fastest to adapt. That's what they generally have that outside being stubborn on specifics, like the famous Levi Lilia. Outside of that, the whole team generally adapts patch to patch pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, you might see a team like 𝘀𝗏 stumble and fall a little bit, but so I think 𝘀WWE versus 𝘀𝗀 will be very interesting. I'm a little bit more scared when you get across to the other teams at the top, but I just don't know. I don't know. It's going to come down to what the coaches have done. We don't know what their solo queue has really been, or at least I don't. I don't know how to look it up. But I think one thing that will be is the players the teams that have really strong mage players will start to rise up instead of going for screwball picks like Galio and whatnot.
It's a matter of there are teams that have shown their ability to kind of flex to new strategies in the past, and there's teams that have shown a propensity to go back to what they know consistently. I think 𝘀𝗀 has had the ability to do both over the years, and they can usually beat people with their strategy, whether they have new strategy or not. 𝘀WE is a team we haven't really gotten to see that much over time, which is unfortunate. We haven't seen their adaptation to different metas. Because last split, obviously, they were running with essentially the same core of players, yet they were having very bad success, as opposed to this split where they're running a very similar core of players, at least in the mid jungle, and they've been having a very different kind of split. So whether that makes an adaptation or not is kind of something to keep your eye on. Teams like 𝘀𝗏, I mean, you've seen them pull out very wacky compositions, and usually they're ahead in terms of their drafting phase. You have to suspect a team like that is going to be in the driver's seat when it comes to something like this, when it comes to this innovation and kind of change to how the meta goes. So I think it's a testament to all these teams and their ability to turn around their fate. To me, the most important three are 𝘀𝗏, 𝘀𝗏sky, and Saigon, because, again, being able to take a cheater series off of 𝘀𝗏, 𝘀WE, 𝘀𝗀, or off of each other, just off the back of knowing the meta better, faster than your opponents, especially VCS versus Saigon Buffalo tomorrow, it could be a very huge game changer when it comes to qualifying for playoffs when the race is this tight.
Okay, well, we've got Rebel and 𝘀𝗏 thoughts. We are going to be ending the day here. We'll be back tomorrow for more VCS action. A quick reminder of today's results. 𝘀𝗏 taking the 2-0 over 𝘀𝗏sky, and 𝘀𝗏sky Esports taking a 2-0 over Team Flash. From myself, Rebel, and 𝘀𝗏. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.